Hey everybody, as always, I hope that you had a great week. I am here with an update on what has happened in Washington, D.C. this week and what has happened at home. Now, you may have seen members of the Martin County Democratic Party or even the Miami-Dade and Broward and other Democrat parties coming into our Stuart office and marching and holding signs and causing disruptions around Stuart, Florida. And I want to address that a little bit because it's funny to me in places they put up signs, they say, "Where is Brian masked?" Well, in this week, as I'm going to give an update on, I've been in Washington, D.C. voting on legislation and dealing with issues that we have here in Washington, D.C. The week before, when these individuals came by the office, I made it a point to learn where it was that they were meeting, and I literally pulled up on my Harley and met them for probably at least 30 minutes or longer. What was I arguing with them about? Things like they want to make sure that the United States of America is paying for the war in Ukraine instead of demanding that Europe pays for the war in Ukraine. Or they want to make sure that the United States of America continues to pay for wasteful programs within USAID that funds things like transgender operas, transgender plays, transgender musicals, transgender job fairs in places like Bangladesh for $800,000 where the average wage is $20 a month. These are the things that they were arguing with me about. One of their other big arguments, of course, Democrats always like to say that the Republicans will not support Social Security and Medicare. And what I did is I actually brought them a copy of the government funding bill.
Let me ask you, how many Democrats voted for this bill to plus up Medicare? I even bookmarked it for you.
Only one Democrat in the House of Representatives voted on this government funding bill that actually plussed up a number of programs. When I say plus up, I mean it increased the funding in a number of Medicare programs. No Democrats except for one voted on it in the House, but we did get Chuck Schumer in the Senate to go over in the Senate and vote and pass this bill as well. Why? Because it was actually a good bill that did a number of good things, including not cutting anything with Social Security and Medicare, which has been the president's commitment. As always, I will go out there and meet them on their ground, have the argument, which is something that I love to do. Why? Because the facts are on our side. We did have an exciting week in Washington. I introduced two pieces of legislation. First, I introduced the Service Member Residential Protection Act. Now, as an Army veteran who's navigated the difficult transition home after deployments, I can't imagine anything worse than returning from a tour of duty abroad or being out for training somewhere for weeks or months on end, only to find a trespasser living in my home. Now, unfortunately, this is a reality for many of our service members, regardless of where they're stationed around the country. Anyone who has a friend or family member serving in uniform knows the unique challenges that we as service members deal with. Long stretches away from home, frequent moves across the country, near constant transitions. Sometimes you have to have a property in one place while you move to another because you're waiting for it to sell or you own it and you're renting it out. Number of different things that happen. Those challenges leave their homes vulnerable to illegal trespassers. There was a case that was reported just this month out of Florida where 11 people had taken over the property owned by an airman who was on deployment. While living on the service member's land, the squatters sold some of his property and trashed the place. That shouldn't happen to any of our service members. In another case, a member of the U.S. Army Reserves was taken advantage of by her rental tenant who refused to pay rent or leave the property. The owner said she spent over $50,000 of her hard-earned money just in the last year trying to kick out the unlawful squatter in legal fees. Another soldier returned home from a deployment to find strangers living in his home after calling the police on 4 separate occasions. He was told that he needs to go through the legal process and that could take months, leaving him without a home. This is unacceptable. My legislation, it frees service member residences from squatters' rights constraints, ensuring that they won't have to endure that stressful and costly process of evicting trespassers when they return home. This week, I also introduced something else. I introduced the National Garden for America's 250th Anniversary Act. This was an idea that President Trump, he included in his plans to celebrate 250 years of the United States of America. We're going to construct a garden that pays tribute to American heroes throughout our history. Now, this bill, it would start the process of building this big, beautiful garden by creating a fund that any citizen can contribute to for the construction and the maintenance of the garden. It's creating a fund. American taxpayers don't pay for it with tax dollars. They pay for it with contributions conditions if they want this to take place. America's past and present, it's filled with generations of trailblazers from all walks of life. And this new garden, it's going to soon be open to the public forever and for everybody to remember, and for people to have a vested interest in establishing this garden, to remember the contributions of people throughout our history. I can tell you, one of my favorite parts of the job is being able to meet up with constituents and groups here in DC or back home or wherever it is that people want to get together. This week I had the pleasure of speaking to some folks who were in town to support an issue that's critically important to our community, the health of our estuaries. Now, as you all know, the fight for clean water is a fight that we wage 24/7, 365 days a year, and until the harm stops to our community, that fight continues full throttle all day, every day, and I'm glad to have so many of you as partners in holding that line. I also had a great time doing something else this week, giving a tour of our capital to students visiting from Florida. These tours are always a fun experience, and they're a new and exciting way for students to learn history right here in the halls of Congress. This week I took students onto the floor of the House of Representatives at about 7 a.m. before the official legislative work was being done. They came ready with questions, and they had a blast talking about Congress, seeing where the work is done, going into the original floor of the House of Representatives, the rotunda, taking a picture on the Capitol steps, doing just a number of different things in the people's house. It's your house. It's the house of we the people. And this is a reminder to any of you, if you're coming to Washington, D.C. with your family, with your friends, give us a call. Let us know when you're coming here, and we will work to make your visit special. Make sure that you get to see the things that you want to see in your capital. It's your country, and so we look forward to seeing you here, and I look forward to giving you the tour personally. It's one of my favorite things to do. Finally, on the House floor this week, we once again spent our time undoing some of Joe Biden's disasters. We passed two what's known as Congressional Review Acts. That's where we go out there and we review something that happened in the past, and then we get rid of it because it was terrible for our country if Joe Biden did it largely. Now, relating to the materials used in refrigerators, they don't call it the land of the free for nothing. The Constitution is very clear. Any right not given to the government belongs to the people down at the state level. That includes the right to cook your food with whatever appliance you want and buy any refrigerator you want. It might seem small, but it's a small step towards freedom, and that's something that we're always going to go out there and support. So, as always, it was a busy week. I didn't even get into the dozens and dozens of meetings that we had each and every day, but it's been an honor to represent you here in Washington, D.C. this week. I look forward to seeing you all around home, and I wish you all the best. You all take care. Hey everyone, thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed the video, please click like and subscribe. I will be back on YouTube with more exclusive content, so stay tuned.